2, Teaching and Reflection, Section 1, The Nature of Teaching, Complexity, Dilemma, 1.1. Nature of teaching complexity. There are some of the major factors that make teaching more difficult or complex than other professional practices. These complexities are resulted from problem of students' cooperation, compulsory students, emotional management, structural isolation and chronic uncertainty about the effectiveness of teaching. The problem of students' cooperation. Teaching is a practice of human improvement. Any practitioners depend on their clients to achieve any results. For example, surgeon can fix the sickness of a patient who sleeps through the operation, and a lawyer can successfully defend a client who remains silent during the trial. But success for a teacher depends heavily on the active cooperation of the student. The student must be willing to learn what the teacher is teaching. Otherwise, a teacher is understood as having failed. That is why you can't be a good salesperson unless someone is buying, and you can't be a good teacher unless someone is learning. As a result, teachers must devote huge amounts of skill and effort in order to make students cooperate. However, the result is far from certain. The students still may choose to reject or ignore the teacher's effort and offer of improvement because of lack of interest, concentration, and etc. Therefore, the effectiveness of the teacher becomes more difficult to establish. The problem of compulsory students. The teacher-student relationship is a form of institutionalized domination and subordination. The teacher represents the formal curriculum, and his interest is in imposing that curriculum upon the children in the form of tasks. However, pupils are much more interested in life in their own world than in the dried-out adult life which teachers have to offer. Waller, 1965. In other words, students are likely to feel the pressure for school attendance as a result of, their parents, who want school to take care of children during the day, to help them get ahead, and even to educate them, the market, which makes school credentials mandatory for access to a good job, their own social desires, school is where their friends are. The problem of emotion management. One of the difficulty of teaching is teachers are required to establish and actively manage an emotional relationship with students. Other professional practitioners in general are expected to maintain a distinct emotional distance between themselves and the client. They focus on the particular problem for which the client is seeking professional help. They are judged on their performance in resolving this problem. They and the client are seen as independent agents pursuing their own ends through the relationship. Unlike most professional relationships, teachers need to develop a broad relationship with students for the purpose of understanding their learning problems. They also need to establish an emotional bond to motivate the student to participate actively in the learning process. Managing emotion becomes even more complex for the teacher to easily practice because there is no prepared guidebook for how to accomplish it for any particular teacher in a particular classroom. Thus, teachers have to work things out on their own. The problem of structural isolation. Ever since the invention of age-graded education early in the 19th century, teachers have found themselves practicing their job within the four walls of the self-contained classroom. They normally teach under conditions where they are the only professional in the room. They are left alone to figure out a way to manage a group of 45 to 60 students and move them through the required curriculum. In this process, teachers have to work on control issue. Unless the teacher establishes control, there will be no learning, and if the teacher does not control the students will control the teacher. To rise to this challenge, the teachers should establish classroom rules and customs. The problem of chronic uncertainty about the effectiveness of teaching. The technology of teaching is anything but certain, and teachers must learn to live with chronic uncertainty as an essential component of their professional practice. This uncertainty in the teaching practice can arise from different reasons. Teachers have to operate under the kinds of scary conditions that introduce unpredictable elements of will and emotion into the heart of the teaching and learning processes. As it is discussed in the problems of emotion management. What we know about teaching is always dependent on different overruling variables that mediate between a teacher's action and a student's response. As a result, there is always a dilemma in any instructional preparation: this works better than that, if other variables are constant. We cannot measure the effect of teachers have on students. For example, a teacher can measure how many of the spelling words introduced this week a student can spell, or how well a student can solve word problems which is covered in class. But how these kinds of lesson contribute to the most important outcomes of education, that is, the preparing of competent, productive, and socially responsible adults. These outcomes are removed from particular classroom interaction between teacher and student for many years by different reasons. The contradictory purposes that societies impose on the whole educational enterprise, that is, in some ways, we want education to promote democratic equality, preparing competent citizens. On the other way, we also want education to promote social efficiency, preparing productive workers. In addition, we want education to promote social mobility, preparing individuals who can compete successfully for social goods. Yet, the kind of teaching and learning that will be effective differs depending on whether the primary aim is to prepare competent citizens or productive workers or social climbers. Teacher does not know exactly his/her client because they are many and different. At one level, the client is the student. At another level, the clients are the parents of the student. At a third level, the teacher's client is the community at large, which not only pays for public education but also feels the effects of the teacher's ability to produce competent citizens and productive workers. Keeping all these clients happy is not an easy matter. 1.2. Nature of teaching dilemma. A dilemma implies a situation where there is no clear easy choice or answer. Example: when you only have 2 extra tickets to an event and 3 friends that want to go. Dilemma can rise from different reasons. A genuine clash of values. Uncertainty about the facts of the case. A failure to be unaccepted, a deficiency in courage, a misdirected desire to be popular, and so on. Uncertainty about our position, our perceptions, the merits of our decisions, and concerns about how they will be received and what their results will be. Some dilemmas of teaching. How to balance the needs and interests of some students over the needs and interests of others. Students with special needs and girls and other normal students in my classroom? What happens if there is a clash between the needs of individual teachers and those of institutions? Staying within your comfort zone or being prepared to take risks become vulnerable. egg. Changing teacher-centered method that one familiar with the student-centered method. For a teacher, balance between pursuing one's own specific tasks, teaching, conducting research, participating in the department meeting, and the moral duty, as an academic citizen, and as belonging to a community, providing community service. How far should a teacher press students to participate in class, the shy, those for whom there are linguistic and cultural barriers, the reluctant, other special needs and female students, and whether to leave them alone after minimum non-pushy invitation to engage? How far to help students? Can such help, at some point, go so far as to undermine or impede the development of autonomy, self-reliance, independent and self-directed learning? The relative time and energy devoted to teaching as compared with research and writing activities. Egg teaching load and conducting action research. To what extent a teacher should disclose his/her problems faced to others? Does sharing make one look like failure even though it is important for professional growth? How teachers use his/her power over students. To avoid using power in fear of undermining and belittling students, or to use more power to gain respect and listened by students. Section 2. The professionalism of teaching, teacher thinking, creativity and teacher learning. 2.1. Teacher thinking. Teacher thinking is defined as the set of cognitions, of mental representations that operates as a lens through which teachers look at their job, give meaning to it and act in it, even though it is difficult to observe and evaluate teachers' thinking. Their knowledge, beliefs and attitudes that directly and indirectly influence their thinking are widely discussed in literatures and in this module as well. There are different kinds of knowledge, attitudes and beliefs the teacher have. Content knowledge refers to the depth of knowledge that a teacher has about the subject itself, for example, their procedural knowledge and conceptual understanding of mathematics topics, as well as of the connections between topics. Pedagogical content knowledge is the knowledge teachers have about the ways students learn particular topics, for example, a particular teaching methods to help students understand the subject matter better. In addition to general pedagogical knowledge is the knowledge a teacher have about classroom management and the characteristics of his/her students. Teachers have knowledge about the context of schooling, from knowledge of the school in which he/she works, to the district, to the larger school system. For example, teachers may have varying degrees of understanding of school financing at various levels, or of how and where decisions are made about curriculum and resources. At even larger level, teachers hold personal value orientations and will have particular beliefs about the purposes of education and even the nature of knowledge. They have also beliefs about what it means to be a teacher, about the roles that teachers should and do play, what the act of teaching requires, what makes for quality teaching. Teachers also have different attitudes and expectations for different students, say, for female and male students, minorities and students with special needs. 2.2 Teacher learning and change, how teachers learn. And where can they learn? Teachers learning and change is one of the concerns in education. One of the purposes of education is to produce citizens who are capable of solving societal problems and bring change to the betterment. Teachers play the greatest role in achieving this educational goal. They take day-to-day responsibility of teaching and guiding students to their level and preparing them step by step to the larger outcomes of the education. The question is how these teachers should learn and train or change first to fulfill their societal responsibilities. Teachers learn in pre-service teacher education, in-service program, teaching practice, reflective practice, pre-service teacher education. Pre-service education is the place where student teachers are trained for the future career. These pre-service programs have chosen different areas of knowledge on which to focus. Some may have a content-heavy academic focus, while others focus more on the teacher's personal development or general pedagogical knowledge. However, in most of the pre-service program, there is no enough place given for reflective practice, interpersonal and communication skills, interdisciplinary approaches, dialogue, teamwork. As research showed that the effectiveness of pre-service teacher education on changing teachers' thinking before they begin teaching is limited. They recognize that teachers' knowledge grows and their beliefs change through their actual practice. Pre-service teacher education programs should be designed to provide student teachers with a strong foundation in a range of knowledge areas and prepare them for continued learning and development throughout their career. Some of the attributes that have been proposed include a strong, clear and shared vision of education, a solid basis in multiple areas of knowledge, opportunities to link learning and practice, and multiple opportunities for inquiry and reflection, so that the process of reflection on practice can begin during pre-service education. In service program, the practicing teacher, learning and change continues throughout a teacher's career. Teacher learning and change comes from studies of particular in-service or professional development programs, which are designed to provide teachers with additional skills that they may need for teaching practice. Teachers need to be reorganized to accommodate the changing roles and functions within the teaching system through in-service or professional development programs. These learning areas can be health promotion, HIV/AIDS prevention, sex education, and life skills training, different approaches to teaching, learning based on strong human relations and interpersonal skills and computer skills. In general, the demands of the new teaching profession require the acquisition of skills that are much larger in scope than those necessary to simply transmit knowledge. Reflective practice. There are many reasons for teachers to develop as reflective practitioners. The most important is that teachers need to be reflective in order to deal with the inevitable uncertainties and dilemma involved in everyday decisions that affect the lives of students. Since teaching is a complex and dilemma-ridden job, the need of ongoing learning as well as the capacity to be reflective is become mandatory. Because today's classroom represents increasing diversity among students, a teacher has to accommodate and adjust to this greater range of differences in ethnicity, socioeconomic status, developmental levels, motivation to learn, and achievement. Being responsive to this vast array of students' needs requires teachers who are reflective. Engaging in reflection helps teachers recognize behaviors and practices which impede their potential for tolerance and acceptance, the vital elements for meeting the needs of all students in a diverse society moving toward a global community. Another reason for developing as reflective practitioners is that it frees teachers from routine and impulsive acts, enabling them to act in a more deliberative and intentional manner. While following routine helps teachers manage the task of teaching, if teachers become slaves to routine they eventually come to feel powerless to influence their future careers. Routine action is guided by circumstance, tradition and external authority, while reflective practice entails voluntary and willingly taking responsibility for considering personal action. A final reason is that emerging beliefs about quality teaching support teachers developing as reflective practitioners. What constitutes quality teaching is evolving. Major curricular changes that provide greater emphasis on socialization and collaboration require fundamental changes in the way teachers view their role. These changing classroom demands redefine the teacher's role as social mediator, learning facilitator, and reflective practitioner. Being able to function in these roles begins with teacher self-awareness, self-inquiry and self-reflection. In fulfilling these roles, teachers in turn help students to learn to exercise self-direction, self-regulation and self-reflection, those qualities that are fundamental for democratic citizens. Section 3, Relationships and Teaching, How are we getting on together? A teacher's relationship can be divided into three main areas: the relationship with students, which mean the ordinary teaching, and the relationship with other staff members, the relationship with societies at large. Teachers link together to students, other teachers, school administrators, families, and community members to foster the learning success and healthy development of their students. The nature of these interactions among different stakeholders varies depending on the teacher's intent and the needs of their students. Now let us review the four major relationships that teachers have with students, school staff, parents, community. Teachers and students. The relationship between teacher and student has been a focus of inquiry for over 2,000 years, since Plato, Socrates, and Confucius established much of the philosophical guidelines for teaching. By emphasizing the acquisition of knowledge through dialogue, each philosopher stressed a commitment to the teacher-student relationship. The 20th century has witnessed the proliferation of ideas fostering teacher-student relationships. In the early 1900s, John Dewey and other progressive educators theorized that children flourish if allowed to grow freely in their own way at their own rate without being forced or limited by too much teaching. Maria Montessori similarly argued that children should discover knowledge for themselves and learn by doing, with a clear emphasis on sensory perceptions. At the other end of the continuum, B.F. Skinner and other proponents of stimulus-response learning theory defined teachers as transmitters of knowledge and students as passive recipients. According to their respective theories of associationism and behaviorism, the classroom teacher presented content to children and conducted drill and review as children memorized the material. The relationship between teacher and student was redefined with the advent of cognitive psychology. Following the principles of constructivism, teachers and students were said to construct knowledge jointly. Teachers and students were believed to constitute a community of learners which engages in social discourse and produces common understandings. Teachers were seen as facilitators who guide and enrich children's learning activities, with students serving as co-contributors to the learning process. Psychologists have recently addressed the psychosocial dimensions of teachers' relationships with students. Research on resilience indicates that caring teachers who express concern for students and act as confidants, role models, and mentors can contribute to children's capacity to overcome personal vulnerabilities and environmental adversities. Teachers and school staff. Teachers' relationships with their peers, other school staff, and school administrators have been researched for decades. These studies reveal that teachers are often isolated from their peers and other school professionals. Professional relationships among teachers adhere to norms that govern the ways teachers ask for and provide help. Research on professional development reveals that interactions among mentors and mentee are often reserved, non-problematic, uncritical and not focused on the classroom practice. However, relationships between mentor teachers and new teachers should be about maintaining harmony and support, rather than developing competence. To increase the quality of teachers-work relationships requires professional and organizational change through, for example, the establishing a positive relationship between participative decision-making and classroom instruction, noting an increase in innovations adopted by schools, professional development activities, teacher exchange of ideas and knowledge, and improved understanding of learning in classroom instruction. Teachers and parents. Teacher-parent relationships impact students' learning and well-being, and many teachers attempt to involve parents in school management or classroom activities. These parent involvement efforts help establish and foster parent-teacher relationships, and include parents in educational interventions, which are significantly more effective than those without parent involvement. Parent involvement programs promote a number of desirable student outcomes, including decreased teen pregnancy and dropout rates, increased graduation rates, and improved achievement and school attendance. Teachers can encourage and support parental involvement through home visits and parent-teacher conferences. Parents who participate in these programs are more likely to further their own education by attending classes and are more able to provide increased support to their children and their children's learning needs. Caring parents and teachers who act in concert can strengthen the effects of educational and social interventions. When there are positive relationships among parents and teachers, the resources of the home and school contexts are amplified, providing a greater likelihood of positive outcomes for children. Teachers and the community. To create rich, nurturing educational environments in the classroom, schools need to maximize the use of resources available in their communities. Teachers can incorporate parents' skills and knowledge and local organizations and programs into their curriculum to offer students supplementary information to complement their basic coursework. Many teachers collaborate with local universities, museums, and community service organizations to expand the cultural resources available to students and enhance their educational experience. Teachers can forge relationships with outside agencies and community members to provide children with the best possible learning environment. To meet the diverse needs of students in our public schools, community services and service providers are often connected to the children's school experience. As organizations, schools have the advantage of having the most frequent contact with students and therefore the potential to truly benefit children through the integration of school-linked services in meeting the children's needs. Teachers may work with social workers, family counselors, local healthcare providers, and others to address and fulfill the needs of their students. Section 4, Professional Identity, knowing oneself as a teacher. Professional identity refers to the set of attitudes, beliefs, experiences, ideals and principles that define a person in their professional career. Generally, they tend to determine who we interact with in our professional lives. These interactions and professional experiences proceed to define one's professional identity. www.ask.com. Any teacher will gain professional identity throughout the process of experiencing teaching. A teacher's disposition can be divided into 4 main areas as follow: able and able. The able teacher sees students as having the capacities to deal with their problems. The teacher believes students or other people in the school community are able to find adequate solutions to events in their own lives. The unable teacher sees students as lacking the necessary capacities to deal effectively with their problems. The teacher doubts students' abilities to make their own decisions and run their own lives. If the teacher believes a student is able, the student will try to do his/her job to the best of his/her ability. If the teacher believes a student is unable, the student will often avoid responsibility. Identified unidentified. The identified teacher relates easily with people, especially with people from diverse backgrounds. The unidentified teacher feels oneness only with those of similar belief and feels apart from all others. If the teacher feels a student can learn, then he/she will employ the most effective methods, as opposed to the teacher who makes materials for a general few and ignores the necessary adaptations that guarantee all students have access to the general education curriculum. Larger smaller. The teacher identified as being larger has a global or broad perspective beyond immediate context. The smaller teacher has a very narrow focus on specific goals. The effective teacher understands the purpose of education is to have a long-term, positive impact on a child's growth and development. People things. The people teacher is concerned with the human aspects of day-to-day life. The attitudes, feelings, beliefs, and welfare of students and fellow community members are prime considerations in his/her thinking. The things teacher is preoccupied with all the impersonal, detail-oriented management aspects of education. The effective teacher is not a concrete thinker concerned with what is right in the school setting but instead focuses on what is appropriate for the individual or situation. The teacher focused on things as a first priority will put schedules and rules ahead of looking for the cause of the problem. Section 5. Teachers as lifelong learners. Lifelong learning is not rooted in any particular moral or professional commitment. Lifelong learning, the teacher becomes an individualistic enterprise, its purpose to consume skills while turning teaching into an endless human resource development project. One way for a teacher to be lifelong learner is by continuously developing his/her profession. What is continuous professional development, CPD? It indicates that learning for the sake of improving professional practice, HDP Handbook, 2011. O consists of any educational activity which helps to maintain, develop or increase knowledge, problem solving, technical skills or professional performance standards, all with the goal that to provide a better student's learning. www.n.wikipedia.org. O is the means by which professionals maintain and enhance their knowledge and skills. The world is moving ever faster, so ongoing CPD is essential to support you in your current role as well as helping you with career progression. CPD is all about upgrading knowledge, skills and capabilities to remain effective and competent. www.cips.org. In short, CPD is anything that makes me a better professional. HDP Handbook, 2011, Approaches to CPD, Continuous Professional Development is employed in schools or higher institution in different ways as follows. Teacher career development in schools including whole college training days, the induction, mentoring and assessment of individual teachers, peer observation, collaborative planning and evaluation, and self-evaluation. Looking beyond a particular school, teachers might build networks by visiting other colleges, attending conferences, undertaking joint training exercises with other schools, joining teacher networks, and engaging with specialist subject associations. Outside the school environment, teachers might attend short courses by NGOs, study for higher degrees (EG), mastering the second degree, PhD. Finally, looking towards the wider community, teachers might sometimes provide opportunities for community learning. Rationale and purposes of CPD. The rationale and the purpose of CPD can be summarized in 4 categories as follows: greater authenticity and commitment to learning. Continuous professional development programs for teacher increases their involvement in learning activities such as professional reading, attending workshops, and joining in school groups to explore particular teaching-related topics. It also increases the ownership of teachers for professional growth and levels of what they described as teacher confidence and enthusiasm. Increased focus and personal accountability in learning. Continuous professional development is believed to help teachers focus, developing a clearer sense of purpose and meaning in their teaching and learning activities. And it increases insight into one's own teaching, and helping define a personal vision for one's practice. It also increases a personal accountability of teachers that goal setting creates. When it's written down, he/she begin to relate everything that happens to that goal. They take more responsibility for their own professional development, and they do much more conscious planning for their growth, and more thinking around questions such as, how will I know when I get there? What will it look like? Teachers' self-affirmation through learning. Continuous professional development program in the schools increases competence and growth rather than deficits and judgment. For examples, end-of-year discussions with teachers about their growth plans tend to highlight their accomplishments, positive changes and affirming incidents throughout the year that otherwise might be forgotten.